Hello, friends. The 1279th day of the war between Russia and Ukraine continues. Ukrainian troops counterattacked near the border of the Dnipropetrovsk region. According to Commander-in-Chief Serednie, they liberated the village of Serednie High, near the border of the region. The Ukrainian military telegram channel, Deep State, notes only a slight decrease in the zone of Russian control in this village. For the most part, it remains under Russia, with the exception of a small section of the gray zone. A Ukrainian fighter with the call sign Muchnoy writes that in Serednie High, our fighters confidently hold most of the settlement, and only a small piece of the southern outskirts remains disputed. Also, the armed forces of Ukraine previously counterattacked further south, and were able to recapture the settlement of Tolstoy. According to our military, they managed to consolidate their position in the settlement, and the positions are currently under control. Meanwhile, Russia reports that it is advancing in the Dnipropetrovsk region. The Russian Defense Ministry announced the capture of the village of Filiia, and published a video with its flag. Ukrainian military expert Petrenko writes that Russian attack aircraft swam across the river and planted a flag in the southern part of the settlement, after which the Russian Defense Ministry announced the capture of the entire settlement. According to him, this is not true, since the Ukrainian armed forces fully control the northern and central parts of Filiia. Also, the Russian Defense Ministry today announced the capture of the village of Zaporizhzhia, near the borders of the Donetsk and Dnipropetrovsk regions. The enemy filmed footage of the demonstration of flags in the central, western, and northern parts of the settlement and announced its complete capture. Ukraine did not confirm this. On the deep state maps, the settlements of Filiia and Zaporizke are under the control of the Ukrainian army, although there is fighting near them. Fighter Muchnoy writes that Orikhiv, Orikhiv, and Zaporizhzhia are in the red zone. According to him, our people are not there, but the enemy does not have many forces either. He is trying to bring in reinforcements to maintain control. The situation there is tense and can change. Russian troops have advanced in the Zaporizhzhia region in the area of Kamianske and Plavni. CNN writes that Ukrainian troops in the Zaporizhzhia region are expecting a Russian offensive. The brigade, that is holding the line in the Orikhiv area, notes that the enemy is concentrating its forces and transferring troops from the Kursk region towards Zaporizhzhia. The Russians are preparing for an escalation here, that's for sure, said Skibchuk, commander of the communications department of the 65th Separate Mechanized Brigade. Ukrainian soldiers say that they lack resources, especially electronic warfare systems and long-range weapons. We are in a technological phase where the zone of destruction increases almost monthly. Now, it is up to 30 kilometers. And we do not have enough of these systems along the entire front, says Skibchuk. Soldiers say that without modern means of protection and long-range weapons, it will be much more difficult for them to stop a possible Russian offensive. Soldiers describe the severity of the fighting and the losses. As Evgeny, a 32-year-old squad leader, says of his 6 fighters, 1 was killed, 2 were wounded, and 2 more received concussions. In one of the battles, their group was pinned down by fire all night, from 8 in the evening until 5 in the morning, without a chance to even get up or crawl forward. Also, anti-drone nets are being massively stretched along all frontline roads, since knocking out logistics is the main problem of this war, the TV channel reports. This weekend, Russian troops once again advanced in the Serebryansky forestry in the Lyman area, near Torske and Yampolivka, Deep State reports. The advance in the same Serebryansky forestry is already clearly threatening Siversk from the flank. Also, the Russian Ministry of Defense announced the capture of the village of Serednie north of Lyman, on the western bank of the Nitrius River. Ukraine has not confirmed this. According to the map, Serednie is under the control of the armed forces of Ukraine. At the same time, a fighter with the call sign Muchnoy writes that Serednie has been partially captured by the Russians. The situation in the Serebryansky forestry continues to deteriorate for the Ukrainian armed forces, writes the military telegram channel Deep State. The enemy continues to develop its success, taking advantage of the advances made earlier and the problems that arose in this area. Mainly small groups of infantry operate, infiltrating deep into the territory, exerting constant pressure on the positions of Ukrainian fighters and looking for any opportunity to gain a foothold. There are cases when the positions of the Ukrainian armed forces exist only in reports, and then the enemy suddenly appears in the rear at the positions of drone operators, or already at the positions of electronic reconnaissance and other units, the Telegram channel reports. The most difficult situation is currently developing in the forest on the northern bank of the Serebryansky River, where the Russians are threatening to block the road in the Dnipropetrovsk area, which will create adverse consequences for the positions there. Therefore, there is hope that they will be withdrawn in time so that they do not end up surrounded, the Telegram channel writes. The Russians are trying to completely push the Ukrainian armed forces out of the Serebryansky forestry and end the long history of fighting for it. Russian troops are also putting pressure in the direction of Yampol and have already appeared in the area of the Yampolivka-Serednie road. In Serednie itself, the situation is also unfavorable for Ukrainian fighters, since the enemy is gradually being drawn into the settlement past their positions, and it is becoming increasingly difficult to knock them out of there, reports Deep State. At the same time, according to Commander-in-Chief Serebryansky and Deep State, the Ukrainian armed forces have liberated the village of Novomykhailivka to the north of this area. At the same time, the Russian army has significantly advanced to the west of Kupiansk, reports Deep State. Thus the Russians have come 2 kilometers closer to the city's main supply route from Kharkiv. In addition, it is noticeable that a large pocket is forming to the southeast of Kupiansk. The head of the Kupiansk City Military Administration, Bisedin, reported today that 1,800 people in Kupiansk are without electricity, gas and water, and 870 residents are in critical conditions. He said that the restoration of infrastructure in the city is impossible due to dense shelling by the enemy with guided aerial bombs, artillery, and drones.
Friends, I want to develop and strive for higher quality content, but my 2009 computer does not allow me to do this. If you have the opportunity to help me buy a new computer and make my dream come true, I will be very grateful to you. You will find the link in the description under the video and in the pinned comment. Thank you very much and see you in the next video.